Actually,
work session.
First.
Work session. Okay, you guys will have to bear with me. It's been a while since I've sat in this chair. So we are in the work session. All right.
Manager.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Turner. Inside the agenda, you'll see that there is consent items. You have approval of the regular meeting minutes from the June the 12th meeting. Also, approval of the City Council workshop on June the 19th. Also, the approval of the City Council closed session meeting for June the 19th as well.
Have we seen those? Okay.
So those will be circulated around, I guess, for the City Council closed session meeting minutes. So we might want to hold off on approving those until you all get a chance to look at those. The next item on the consent agenda number 4 is the adoption of a resolution honoring Michael Harris on his retirement from the Belmont Police Department and declaring his badge and service weapon as surplus property. There's also an adoption of a resolution, thank you, honoring Doug Huffstetler on his retirement from the Belmont Police Department and declaring his badge and service weapon as surplus property. There's also acceptance of streets in the Over Lake and McLean Phase 2 neighborhood, and these are for 3 streets that are Shearwater Drive, Green Heron Court, and Kingfisher Way. There's a map that was included inside your consent package, a memo from City Engineer Jerry Hatton, and staff has looked at the streets, the curbing, the sidewalks, the storm drainage. All have been inspected and found to be in compliance with city standards. So we're recommending that City Council accept these streets for ownership and maintenance into the City of Belmont network. And those are the 6 items that are included on consent.
I had a question on the acceptance of streets, and it might be more directed toward the city attorney, but if you look at the descriptions, I think there might be a gap in the warranty between, on Green Heron Court, between Shearwater Drive and Kingfisher Way. I'm not sure if that portion is covered in the warranty, based on the descriptions in the of the streets that are covered.
That would be an engineer question.
Okay.
Mr. Hatton, could you step to the microphone, please?
Where was that gap again?
I think it's on Green Heron Court between Shearwater Drive and Kingfisher Way, if you read the various descriptions. Because I think Green Heron was only warranted up to Shearwater Drive, and then Kingfisher Way is warranted, let's see.
Well, that's okay. That's
From the cul-de-sac to Green Heron Court.
should have been to Kingfisher Way. What's shown in the exhibit is what
Okay.
we're going to do. The warranty is just a letter.
All right.
It's not backed by any money or bonds per se. It's just
It's a
an
warranty.
item that I've asked them to do just so they are aware that they still have to fix anything that breaks down. We have found the developers to be pretty much agreeable with that arrangement. TriPoint is just beginning another project down there in McLean, so we'll have contact with them for a while.
So should it say to Kingfisher Way? Is that what you said?
Yeah. With
that change, you're satisfied?
Yes.
Okay.
We can just cross it out. It's
Okay.
like I said, it's just.
Well, you'd hate to have something arise in that portion and then them say it's not covered by the warranty.
Good catch.
We'll make that change.
Are there any other questions regarding the consent agenda? Questions or concerns?
Can we speak up a little too? I think some of the audience members are having a hard time hearing us.
All right, how can you adjust this? How is the volume? Can you hear it better now? Is this better? Okay, just move that up a little. All right,
Now you call to order.
okay, we will now call the regular meeting to order. We will begin with the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Jim, as has been customary, do you mind doing the invocation?
Sure, that's
Alex,
fine.
do you mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure.
Okay. If you'd all stand.
Let us bow our heads and pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the blessings that you've bestowed on our city, especially with the brand new recreation center that we opened this weekend, and this beautiful building that's been built for all of our citizens. We also pray for our former mayor, Charlie Martin, and thank him for his many, many years of service to this city. We pray that you bestow your wisdom and guidance on us as we deliberate today for the benefit of our citizens, and we ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Please join with me to sing the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge
allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, our next item of business will be the swearing in of our new council member, Jason Rumfelt. Jason, if you would step forward with the city clerk.
Put your left hand on the Bible, raise your right.
Sure. I, Jason P. Rumfelt, do solemnly swear that I will support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina not inconsistent therewith, and that I will faithfully discharge my duties as councilperson. So help me God. Thank you.
Congratulations, Jason. All right, we're now going to move on to recognitions and acknowledgements. I believe the police chief is going to lead us in these.
Mayor Pro Tem, Council, appreciate your time. Tonight I'd like to recognize two officers who either recently retired or retiring really quick. July 31st, Doug Huffstetler will be retiring, and Mike Harris, Detective Mike Harris, he retired July 1st officially. Both of you guys will come on up. Both officers have dedicated many years to the city of Belmont and its citizens to provide a better place to work and live. Your family can come up as well if they like. Every day these two officers showed up at work, they've lived up to our mission statement, which is to protect and serve with dignity, fairness, and respect. And I'd like to definitely recognize their dedicated service to the city. Mike Harris has served the city for 21 years. He has more law enforcement, but for the city of Belmont, he's been with us for 21 years. And SRO, School Resource Officer Doug Huffstetler here, he's been here for over 17 years. I'd like to just take a minute to go over a couple of things. It's not everything they've accomplished, but some of the highlights throughout their careers being here in Belmont. Mike Harris has he earned his advanced law enforcement certificate. He's a professional crime scene certification, which is a pretty lengthy course. Multiple commendations, a Medal of Valor, Purple Heart Award, Officer of the Year, 2 Meritorious Service Awards, and a Dedicated Service Award. And School Resource Officer Doug Huffstetler has his Advanced Law Enforcement Certificate, his SRO certification, which is a week-long course. If you've ever seen him, you've probably seen someone riding around on a bike. It's probably been Doug. He's a certified bike patrol officer. He has multiple commendations. I actually went back through his file to look at some of the things that he's accomplished myself. And he had, when I say multiple, I mean there's a lot of letters in there thanking him for his service and all the things that he's done. And he's Officer of the Month in 2023 recently. He's also Officer of the Year in 2006. And he's on the board of directors for the North Carolina Association of School Resource Officers as a chaplain, which he just came from to here, as a matter of fact. So I'd like to just say thank y'all for your service, and thank you to your families for allowing us to have these two gentlemen here to protect and serve the citizens in Belmont. So thank you.
And I would like to add on behalf of the city, thank you for your service as well. I've known these two officers for some time, and I appreciate your service. Moving on, item 6.
I'll move to set the agenda.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to set the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The agenda is set.
I would also move to approve the consent agenda with the one modification that we discussed.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, moving on to, let's see.
Thanks, sir.
All right, for public comment tonight, we have 2 speakers. The first speaker is Oscar Reed. Oscar, if you would state your name and address for the record.
Oscar Reed, 300 Todd Street, Belmont, North Carolina, 28012. First of all, I got to say to everyone, good evening. My name is Oscar Reed. I'm the grandson of Professor Charles Jesse Bynum Reed. I'm also the only surviving child of Viola and Horace Reed and a member of the CJB Reed Foundation Board. I'm aware that the City Council plans to take action tonight in closed session on the possible purchase of the Reed ancestral home. Regrettably, we have not had the opportunity to meet with all of City Council to discuss this, but I would like to provide you some information that the board and I think will help you make your decision. The CJB Reed ancestral home, a craftsman bungalow built in 1920, is listed on the North Carolina Study List of the National Register of Historic Places and considered one of the best examples of this type of architecture in Gaston County. The home's significance is increased by the original owner, many contributions to the African American community of Belmont and Gaston County. It was the home of Professor Charles Jesse Bynum Reed, founder and principal of the Rosenwald Grant Reed High School, which served the local African American community from 1932 until 1966, when Gaston schools integrated and the school was closed and demolished. The family's and board's vision is for the property to be preserved and repurposed as a museum community center dedicated to educate the public about the rich history of the Reed family, high school, and community. The house is filled with irreplaceable artifacts that we hope will be researched and displayed on the floor of the structure, but paired with the Baltimore School in Cramerton, this space would be an ideal field trip destination for Gaston County school children. The possibilities for utilizing the basement and upstairs bedrooms include artist studio space, rentable workspace for local nonprofits. But over the past years, we've had built partnerships with Preservation North Carolina, the State Historic Preservation Office, the Belmont Historical Society, the Gaston African American Museum of History and Culture, the Gaston County Historic Preservation Commission, the Board of Directors of the Baltimore Village School, and the Gaston Community Foundation. The city recently had the home inspected. No major issues were found, but on June 19th, Mr. Eisenhower conducted a full appraisal. The home is appraised for $285,000. Scholar Credit holds a mortgage on the property, $120,000. The family and the board feel strongly that Preservation North Carolina should be involved in any effort to preserve the home. Their expertise is and will be invaluable. Our hope in preservation for North Carolina hope is the saving the Reed ancestral home will prompt a larger movement to preserve structures in the community, Hood Memorial Church, Lost Chapel Presbyterian, and others. There is still a fighting chance for these structures to be preserved in the face of ongoing development pressures. Preserving the C.J.B. Reed home will be the cornerstone of efforts to further preserve the Reed community. In closing, the Reed family and the board are grateful for the city's interest preserving the Reed ancestral home, which is so central to the history of the Reed community and the city of Belmont. Thank you so much for your attention and your consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Oscar. Excuse me. All right, next up we have Bridget Somerville. And as I should have noted at the beginning, we have 3 minutes for each speaker, and you will see a green, yellow, and red light as your time proceeds.
My name is Bridget Somerville, and I live at 51 Drive. I've been a resident of Belmont for 63 years. She never told that. My mother told me several times that during World War II, there was a board that listed the names of men from our town who were serving in the military. This board was located at the corner of Main Street and Catawba Street, where the old post office and city hall was. I could never verify this with anyone else, but I'm sure that my mother remembered this correctly. I would like to come before the city council tonight to ask if I may use the old city hall next May and June to put up a World War II display to honor our veterans. What I'm proposing is to have pictures of Belmont residents who served in the war in any capacity, and if space is available, a short description of their service. The time frame would run from Memorial Day until Flag Day. This would encompass the 80th anniversary of D-Day. While I understand that May 2024 is a long way off, if approved, I would like to start announcing this on social media and contacting local churches. I would like to also stress that I'm proposing only people who were residents of Belmont from 1941 to 1945 to be included. If approved, I would take responsibility for making sure the building is open in the mornings and secure when we close each day. If this needs to be tabled for a meeting closer to the dates, I would like to be notified of the meeting. And if the council votes no tonight, I would like to thank you for your time in listening to my proposal. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The only thing I would add to that is this is public comment. There is no action that will be taken on that tonight. We will, however, defer that to staff for their review and input. And someone will be reaching out to you on that. All right, that should conclude our public comment. We had 2 speakers. We are now moving into item number 2 on our agenda, which is an update from Belmont Trolley, Inc. I think Rob Presley, I think you're presenting. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rob Presley. My residence is 1415 Coventry in Charlotte, North Carolina. However, I'm a stakeholder and own a number of properties in Belmont. I'm here on behalf of Belmont Trolley Incorporated, which is a nonprofit organization located here in Belmont. Our office address is 100 North Main, Belmont, North Carolina, 28012. This is not the first time we've come before you all. We do it kind of on an annual basis. And some of you, council members, I've had an opportunity, including the city manager, today to kind of give an update. In years past, we've hit on some highlights. Each year, our list of action items gets a little longer and a little bigger. And what I did is myself and staff put together a list of the 13 biggest accomplishments of Belmont Trolley Incorporated over the last year. I also put in there a list of the board members that you could have that. I also put a couple of pictures as exhibits in there. What I would like to do is take a few minutes and hit some of these highlights. I'm not going to read verbatim what you have in front of you. You can take it home and read it later, and feel free to email me or call me if you have any questions about it. It was actually a really, really busy year for Belmont Trolley. I told somebody earlier today, I don't think when we came up with this idea 8 or 9 years ago, we could have had any idea of what it takes to get a couple of little train cars to run up and down a track. But I've now had an education in everything from engineering to public politics with state DOT rail and highway divisions and engineers at the UNCC School of Engineering. But let me run through a few of these things. One of the things that we realized leading up into the beginning of last year is we have just gotten to a point to where there's too much going on for us as a volunteer organization to try to handle it all and keep things moving. And so we hired a director to come on board. This position was funded by an individual in the community who saw the benefit in it and agreed to fund that position within the organization. Her name's Katie Rust, and her official title is Director of Project Advancement. Katie is a local resident here in Belmont. Her husband and 2 children live here. Katie has been absolutely a godsend for us. Just the sheer volume of collecting and keeping all the board members informed and making sure we show up at the right places at the right time. Most of you know we formed an alliance with UNCC School of Engineering a few years ago. This too has been a dream come true. Our organization's mission originally was to try to figure out a better link between Belmont Abbey College and downtown Belmont. It now includes STEM education. It includes economic development, includes building an event and a tourism facility in downtown that will house the cars. But this collaboration with the School of Engineering allowed us to handle or solve for one of our other challenges that's in this list of 13 items. Trolley cars don't have motors or don't have engines, they have motors, and motors require electricity. And so we had to figure out a way to provide electricity to trolley cars. And so if you will flip to the next to the last page in the document I gave you, actually the last page in the document I gave you, 3 years ago, our engineering team and the School of Engineering began putting together the plans to design and ultimately build a power car that will run tandem with the historic trolley cars. I know that some of you showed up for our event with the School of Engineering earlier last year. Several of you council members were there. This is a big deal. I mean, if you take everything else and throw it to the side, this is a big enough deal for us to exist to begin with. We realized UNCC's engineering school has a whole school centered around wireless charging for trains. This is not a local thing. This is a worldwide thing. And our car now has been built. It has been tested. And UNCC, the bottom picture you see there, UNCC, this was before an event up at the university. They had engineers and people from around the world come, including a contingent from Taiwan, to show off this car and the technology that Belmont Trolley and UNCC School of Engineering have now put into place. So as to keep things rolling, that was a huge accomplishment for our organization this year. We added 2 new board members this year. We received a generous gift from a local private charitable foundation in the amount of $205,361.91. That was
a very specific amount.
Yes. And the specificity of the amount comes from the fact that it was given to us in the form of stock, which we then quickly cashed, sold the stock. And this charitable foundation also is willing to give us additional monies in future years as we make certain progress. We redesigned the station, which I also have put a picture of. It is the next to the last page. One of the things we realized was the trolley barn, when built, will not only serve to house the trolley cars, the trolley barn will be an event center that will include things like Saturday morning farmers markets, indoor, outdoor events, community events. It will have catering, kitchen facilities. I will remind everyone that the plan from the beginning has been Belmont Trolley Incorporated is going to fund and build this facility and then donate the facility to the community and lease it back in perpetuity for $1 a year and share in maintenance costs. But this will provide restrooms to the future thread trail and to downtown that don't currently exist, and it'll provide indoor and outdoor venues for civic space. One of the other things we did is the Belmont Trolley retained the services of a rail engineering firm. We had to solve for the problem of how to get the cars in and out of the trolley barn building, as well as varying points down the line all the way to Belmont Abbey had to be addressed. We've been working closely with NCDOT Rail and Highway Division to make sure that the improvements on 74 and 85 include and remember that we're involved. They have been. They've made specific design changes to their plans as a result of Belmont Trolley. Let's see. As far as the state goes, we currently have a little under $500,000 in our account. We have about 30% complete architectural drawings, engineering drawings. We have a long ways to go on those, but we now have some direction through the engineers. But we know to build this facility and do it the way we want to, and that would be commensurate with downtown Belmont, it's going to be an expensive facility. And so this is about where we think we are today, fully furnished with all the STEM education facility in place, the historic education facility in place, and all the other things. We're probably north of $2 million, $2.5 million. And that's before we get into the site and the rail line and some stops. We've been working with Speaker Tim Moore's office in Raleigh for the last 6 months to receive funding from the state, and we're waiting to hear from the state on our request for funding. We put together a formal presentation and package to them and have had numerous conversations with Speaker Moore and his staff. The funding request we made of the state for this year's budget is $3.5 million. We hope to hear. I know that the city has also made some requests for some funding that they haven't heard their fate yet, nor have we, and so hopefully we'll all hear good news in the near future. That funding, even if we got less than the 3.5, would go a long way to allowing us to go ahead and start construction on this. Our goal is to get these cars out in the public view sooner than later, and by building this, we would be able to complete our mission. Let's see, we did some fleet improvements. One of the things we also, as we continue to raise money and collect money, we felt like moving our accounting to an outside third-party firm would be wise on our part. And so this year we hired Ford & Company out of Charlotte, who specifically focuses on nonprofits. That's kind of their forte as an accounting firm. And they have continued to work through and get our financials in order and get us to make sure we were in a position to where if we had any investors that we would be in good fiscal sound shape and be able to have materials we could present. The last big one I will point out, well, we also launched a new website, and that's been in the last couple of weeks. So please go online to belmonttrolley.org and see our new website. We also subscribe to Blackbaud, which is, if not the largest, one of the largest nonprofit software service providers in the country. They're based out of Charleston. Blackbaud allowed us to link our website to receive various forms of donations, whether it be credit card or other things, and then that information, that there's a whole software program that we could not have done internally without Blackbaud. So they allowed our charitable giving to be much more sophisticated in the way we handle it. It also allowed us to have a CRM, which allows us to directly track our donors, our sponsors, interested parties, so that we can keep them regularly updated with newsletters, as well as let them know of our accomplishments. The last thing I will mention, I think most of you saw it, hopefully you did, but we were very fortunate. PBS contacted us. They had gotten word of our project and were very interested, and sent a guy down, and he spent a day with us and some of the business owners in town, and they did a great special on PBS on Belmont Trolley. And it's funny, I guess I watch PBS from time to time like everybody. We're flipping channels trying to find something, and I cannot tell you the sheer number of people who have texted, phone called, not only myself, but other board members of Trolley, and just said, what an amazing project. You know, it's how exciting for Belmont. So that was a great form of publicity, if you will, which is always helpful when you're raising money for a nonprofit. It's been a big year, and the next year is going to be equally busy. We are wrapping up the shell for the power cart. We continue to do improvements on the cars, but the biggest and most important thing is continuing to raise capital and continuing to design our facility for downtown Belmont. I'll close with this, and I shared this with Miles earlier today. From the beginning, we always knew to have trolley service in Belmont, we needed three things: rail, cars, and a facility. We have $1 million worth of cars sitting in this building. We have a commitment from NCDOT, who has already done improvements on the rail line for us. We have a line. We need the facility. That's our last leg, and that's where all of our board's focus is at the moment, is raising the capital through grants and charitable giving, so that we have a facility the community can be proud of and drive economic development, STEM education, historical education, and a facility in downtown that we can use for civic and community events. Questions?
Thank you for the update. I do not have a question, just a comment. I'll open the floor to questions, but I did go to your event. This is a remarkable piece of technology. I mean, it's very impressive, and it's impressive that it's here in Belmont.
It really is, and just to expound upon how impressive it is for those who don't understand, UNCC has a school totally focused on providing wireless charging for battery-powered trains, which is the future of the train industry. They know that diesel and coal and the other things that power trains is not sustainable long-term. And the problem is charging the batteries. Well, like a Tesla, you can plug it in your garage when you come home at night, but a train's constantly moving. And so UNCC has taken some technology that already existed and enhanced it. And basically what they're doing is they're designing a charging system that is wireless, like your telephone or your watch that you lay down on the remote charger at night. This charging is in the tracks. And so the train's running and the charge is admitting to the batteries through the tracks. It will revolutionize the train industry. And we are very lucky to have these people in Charlotte and helping with the dean of the school has been very gracious and has brought people to us, and they on their own have applied for several grants that are very large in nature that would benefit Belmont Trolley and UNCC. I'll also say this, that UNCC, as a result of teaming with Belmont Trolley, is now studying putting a permanent education facility in Gaston County for this portion of the engineering school, and we are working hard to try to get them to put it in Belmont, but anywhere in Gaston would be great to give a presence here. Who knew when we were trying to get kids from the Abbey over to downtown that it would go this far, be this complex? I didn't, but it's amazing.
Well, it'd be quite a coup if you could get that school here in Belmont.
Oh my gosh.
All right, with that, any questions?
Just a comment. I'm still very excited about this project, as I was, again, I think in high school is the first time I heard about it at the general store of all places. Please let us know if there's anything we can do outside of obviously money to help this organization to kind of get it off a little bit faster. So good work. Appreciate everything y'all are doing.
Thank you. And I appreciate all y'all have done for us too. Councilman Heffron sits on our board, attends all of our board meetings, and so he has a lot of information that if you have questions, he can also answer those questions too. And fortunately, Kevin Kraus also sits in on our meetings, so the city's well represented on our board and our monthly board meetings.
Any other questions or comments? No? All right, Rob, thank you.
Great. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Again, feel free to email or call me if you'd like. I'm happy to answer some one-off stuff if you want an update. And you're new to this, so I'm happy to bring you up to speed as well.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we will move to item number 3, which is to consider approval of the resolution approving of the Belmont ABC Board's request to set aside, when available, a certain amount of gross receipts for a capital reserve fund. And who is leading us through this? Is it Brian?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I think Brian Burns is in the audience.
Yes, he's in the back.
Okay, if you could come up and step to the microphone, please. Mr. Burns will be moving us through this this topic.
Good evening. Apologize for my appearance. I didn't know I was going to be standing up here. I thought I was just going to be observing.
Well, some people would say it's a good appearance if they're a South Carolina fan, but maybe the Clemson fans disagree.
Yeah. So basically, to review again, we're just asking for an increase of the cap. The floor won't change. That's mandated by statute. So we're asking you all to extend our cap so that we can reserve funds for possible expansion. With the knowing that if we do not do an expansion, that those funds in the cap will revert back to the city.
So that would be my questions, just to walk through it, because I think your materials answer a lot, but just for everyone's benefit. So we're talking about excess funds being set aside on top of what is being distributed in our in your periodic distributions
Correct.
to us.
So we are they're the state. We are only allowed to keep X amount of funds. We have reached that point, and so without the approval from City Council to go above that point, we would have to distribute those funds back to the city. So what we want to do is hold on to those funds in order to look at expanding the ABC store, whether it's North Belmont Peninsula, wherever. We've hired a consultant. We should know something within 90 days from the consultant. So, and then we'll go from there.
And the monthly distributions will not be reduced by doing this.
Correct. The quarterly distributions will not change. That is set by statute. So that fund, the floor remains the same. Yes.
And those distributions have a higher priority than this.
Correct.
So that if for some unexpected reason there's less money, the money would not go to the capital reserve. The money would still go to our normal distribution.
Correct. You still get the percentage by statute. Yes.
So the only question I would have that wasn't answered in what you provided was, what I understand the time frame with the consultant, but what do you think is a reasonable time frame to, like, if the decision is made to, and by the way, if you don't go forward, then all the excess funds would be distributed to the city. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yes. If you do move forward, however, what do you think is a realistic time frame for having a brick and mortar second store?
I would think possibly a year. I mean, it just depends on contractor bids, upfit, location, etc.
So 90 days to hear from the consultant, and then if you decide to move forward, about a year after that.
That would be my estimate. Yes.
And you're still scoping out potential locations?
We haven't looked at locations. That's part of the scope of the consultant.
Okay. It was poorly phrased. I apologize.
So you're looking at the active life of this resolution probably being just a year in tenure?
I would think it would be maybe 2.
2 years?
Yes.
Okay, that come up in discussion earlier because it was open-ended.
Right.
whether there should be some sort of cap or way to revisit it at some point.
You know, if you want to revisit in a year, I think that's,
I think
more than appropriate.
if you look, there's language in the resolution that we can change our mind and
Via resolution.
via resolution. And if we were to do that, I would assume then anything that was saved would come back to the city.
Correct.
Are there any other questions, comments? The only comment that I would make would be to legal. I mean, are we satisfied with the language within the resolution?
Yes.
Okay. Well, with that, I would entertain a motion.
Yeah, I'll move to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
You all do a good job, so we appreciate it.
We just to update. We closed our fiscal year in June. Sales $5.8 million.
Wow.
State said we only do $1 million.
All right, with that, we are going to move to our next item, item 4, which is an annual update and request by the Belmont Housing Authority to waive a payment in lieu of taxes.
Good evening. As some of you know, not all of you, but Belmont Housing Authority.
I'm sorry, you are?
I am so sorry. Erica Bobo, Executive Director of Belmont Housing Authority. I do live here in Belmont, 1101 Mayapple Way.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. This is only the second time I've done this, and the first time I had our attorney with us, so I'm, a little rough. Green, I guess I should say. Belmont Housing Authority has in the past requested the board requested a waiver of payment in lieu of taxes. When I came before the board last year in October, we were asking for a waiver of pilot for several years, and the board graciously approved it. This year, we are asking for a waiver of pilot for our fiscal year ending March of 23. So this amount actually covers April 1, 22 through the end of March of 23. The amount that we are asking for a waiver on this year is $12,329. The funding, or we are, as you know, we're a federally funded program. This amount is based on our it's based on the rent charges. It's based on our subsidy amount minus rent, minus our utilities, and if we were able to continue to have this waiver, if the $12,000 would go back into our operating budget, and we would use it for operating. We do not have, like I said, we're federally funded. We do not have a lot of funding. Every dime that we get, we try to put back into our community. We just finished a major $2.1 million under slab sewer project. We did get a grant for that. Along with that, we did have to use some of our capital funding because the grant didn't cover everything. The next thing that we have is we need to replace all of our windows. And there are 455 windows on the property. So we're looking at over $200,000-300,000. I haven't gotten all of the quotes back yet, but it's a lot. And we don't receive that much through operating and capital fund in a year's time. So this $12,000, if we were able to keep it, it would go toward putting some of these windows. That's my next project, is the windows, the window replacement. We have, we do every, you know, I don't know if any of you guys have been to Flowers Court, but Flowers Court is not the typical, and I say typical because in the big cities, a lot of public housing looks a lot different than what we have here in Belmont. And we do really try to preserve it, to maintain it, and we want to keep it that way. Do you have any questions?
No, just a comment. So, I mean, in a nutshell, it has been this board's tradition and custom to go ahead and waive these fees to enable you to return those fees back into the projects that you are doing. Okay.
And we certainly appreciate you, because we remember you coming last year, like you said, with the attorney, and it's always good to have attorneys around. But we appreciate the fact that, you know, it's been a year and here you are, because I think it was about 10 years in between visits as of last year. My only question is, I'm just curious, you know, it looked like most of the years were in the $2,000–3,000 range, and this year's $12,000. I'm just curious what caused the pilot to jump up like that.
There was an increase in our rents. The rents increased by 27%. That was a big factor. And of course, the rise in the rent came from the rise in the income, because our property is based on your income. That is one of the factors. Another factor is that utilities increased. Our portion of utilities that we had to pay out increased.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? All right, so before us, we have a request to waive a payment in lieu of taxes. At this time, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
All right.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to item number 5, to consider naming the skateboard park in honor of Trevor Gray.
Now, I'm not sure if I see Zip in the audience. Zip Stowe, is he out there?
There's Zip.
Zip.
You mind coming forward, Zip?
Yes, that's what they're doing.
Good.
Good. How are you?
Yeah, this is a request to rename the Fort Center after Trevor. We advertised in the newspaper for the allotted time, and we had nobody that responded back. So that's a good positive thing. So we would like to name this in honor of Trevor.
It's the skateboard
It was a
park.
skateboard park.
Correct. Yes, sir.
And there was going to be a plaque on the bench in honor of the officer.
It will be a plaque in the bench also.
But we don't need to.
No, we don't need to do that.
Okay. But I was just.
We already have the benches already,
Mm-hmm.
so just be paying the allotted money to pay for that plaque, which is about $200.
And I thought we were waiting on the family of the officer. I mean, have they approved their?
One of our rec board members was supposed to be working on that, and I hadn't heard nothing from Dan yet on that.
Okay.
So I have to refer to him on that one.
Okay.
All right, I believe this item came to us with recommendation, unanimous, I believe, from the Park and Rec
Yes,
Board.
unanimous from the Park and Recreation Board, and also Martha Stowe is a big advocate for this. She's been on this from day one of the skate park.
Okay, well, this seems pretty straightforward, but are there any other questions for Zip on this?
Nope.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank you,
Zip.
Zip.
Okay, thanks.
Well, I think we have to approve, don't we? I'll
do.
make a motion to.
We are.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the naming in honor of Trevor Gray. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, our next agenda item, we're going to go into a public hearing for TA 2023-20, which is a swim spa inside yard an amendment to the Land Development Code to allow small pools, spas, or hot tubs, or a limited portion thereof in a side yard area. We have a motion to go into public hearing.
Motion to go into public hearing.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, we are in public hearing. We do not have anyone signed up to speak on this, so who will be leading us through this?
Thank you,
Alex.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, Council. That was such an excellent summary. I guess we can just go on. Or I will read this verbatim since there are no monitors out here. Is that all right with everybody?
Yep.
Yeah. I think that's the best. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's fine.
And Tiffany's going to advance the slides. This is, go back one. I didn't read the, for the record, this is text amendment 2023.02, swim spas and pools in the side yard. Thank you. So there have been recent discussions on innovative building types, initiated a conversation among staff and local builders to allow pools in the side yards in limited situations. The concept was brought to the planning board in March for discussion, and we received, it's kind of hard to read that far away, and we received consensus to bring back text for consideration. Bear with it. Next slide, please. Y'all bear with us. We're just meeting here. So you can see from the photos examples of these smaller pools. The last slide showed presumably pools in side yards. This is an example on the left of a wraparound pool that could have an element in both the side and rear yard. And then on the right, you can see a swim spa or pool with an associated jacuzzi or that type of spa. Next slide. The current Land Development Code, which is our zoning ordinance, it lacks the definition of a pool, so we've added that to Chapter 2. It's a rather broad definition and includes spas, hot tubs, and swim spas, and is consistent with North Carolina Building Code. We had a discussion about how limiting we should be on these pools and came up with an allowance of 200 square feet of surface area when located in a side yard. So probably won't come up that much, but if you had a wraparound pool, 200 square feet of it could be in the side yard, and then you could have a larger part of the pool in the rear yard. For your information, the side yard would be defined as the area between the main front wall of the house, the main front facade, if you drew a plane through that, and then the main rear wall of the house. So it's got a front yard in front of the main front wall of the house, rear yard in back, and the rest is the side yard. On May 18th, the planning board voted unanimously 8-0 to forward this item to City Council with their recommendation to approve. And the Planning and Zoning Board found this amendment to be reasonable in the public interest and consistent with the comprehensive land use plan goals. Goal number 1, land use. Goal number 2, community character. Tonight, we are asking you to take public comment, if any, discuss it, offer modifications if you so choose, and then vote to approve or not. Possible motions would be to approve as presented, approve as modified, or to disapprove. And for the findings, could be that the text amendment is a reasonable request and in the public interest, and that it is consistent with the goals of the comprehensive land use plan. I'll be happy to answer questions.
Any questions on this for Alex? Doesn't look like we have any questions.
I
for
told
Alex.
you did a good job.
Yeah, should have gone straight to a vote, right? All right, with no questions, then I would entertain a motion to come out of public hearing.
Motion to come out of public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, I would entertain a motion to approve this text amendment.
Motion to approve the text amendment as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I would also move that this text amendment is a reasonable request and in the public interest and consistent with the goals of the comprehensive land use plan, goal 1, land use, and goal 4, community character.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
That might be a new record.
It was very brief.
Yes.
For a text amendment?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, moving on. We are going to go into another public hearing to consider text amendment 2022.10, mobile food vendors, a request to amend various chapters of the Land Development Code to allow mobile food vendors subject to specific performance standards.
Motion to go into public hearing.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are in public hearing. We have no one signed up to speak to this topic, so we'll move into staff's presentation.
Same, y'all hear okay? Good. Thank you. This, for the record, this is text amendment 2022.01 concerning mobile food vendors. And the request tonight is to amend chapters 2, 3, 5, and 6 of the Land Development Code or the zoning ordinance to allow mobile food vendors under specified conditions. As background, analysis of existing regulations determine the need for us to clarify gray areas in the Land Development Code to allow mobile food vendors on a temporary and on a mobile basis. It was suggested that we propose this language by the Main Street program, and Phil is here tonight, and it went through a review process involving all departments in analyzing and drafting text. This was presented at the March Planning and Zoning Board meeting, who heard our questions and expressed concerns that were asked to be addressed. So the intent of this ordinance is to regulate mobile food vendors. They are allowed and encouraged to operate in specific locations around Belmont in a way that fosters entrepreneurial spirit while being compatible with existing food establishments. While the municipal code regulates uses within public rights-of-way and sidewalks, the LDC will outline standards for operation on privately owned properties. And on property owned by the city, mobile food vendors are required to obtain prior approval by PNR, by Parks and Rec, by the events coordinator for downtown, or other city designees. Why do we need regulations within the Land Development Code? We already have some regulations in the municipal code, which is the code of ordinances in the blue book for activities on city streets and sidewalks. But clear regulation is lacking for areas outside of public rights of way, in other words, on private property. We have a need to delineate requirements for temporary businesses, that is, mobile locations that are subject to change versus permanent businesses. So this will outline clear standards for mobile food vendors to follow, and we will be able to avoid permitting that is typically required for permanent structures and permanent restaurants. And then there will be regulations on parking and storage concerning resident operators and for existing brick and mortar businesses. So the next slide summarizes items that are in the municipal code. I'm going to go ahead and read this. The first item is assembly on sidewalks. All persons are forbidden from assembling or collecting either on foot or in automobiles and standing so as to obstruct any sidewalk or street, or so as to impede the passage or vehicles, should that be along the same, and all persons so collecting and standing shall disperse and move upon the demand of any police officer. The next item is display of goods prohibited. No person shall place for display or sale any goods, wares, or merchandise of any kind upon any of the streets or sidewalks of the city, which shall extend out on the street or sidewalk, and which shall obstruct any of the streets or sidewalks, provided this shall not be construed to prevent merchants from making reasonable use of sidewalks and streets in the receiving and shipping of goods. And the last item, selling from booths, vehicle, and the like on streets and sidewalks. No person shall stop or place any wagon or other vehicle or erect any stand or booth on any of the streets or sidewalks of the city for the purpose of vending any goods, merchandise, produce, provisions, or the like. Next slide, please. So you can see that currently on city sidewalks, mobile food vendors, I've got this backwards, Tiffany. Oh, that's right. They're allowed and are coordinated for, so there are no regulations, and they're allowed or coordinated for any temporary or special events by Main Street Program, Police Department, or other designated city departments such as Park and Rec. Well, and then the next one is in parks, city parks, they're allowed and coordinated by the Parks and Recreation Department for city events. And at the bottom, on property owned by the city of Belmont, mobile food vendors are required to obtain prior approval by the departments or designated entities that I just talked about. So for our department, the concern is where should we allow parking and storage of mobile food units? Language is going to be added to Chapter 3 to clarify the alignment, clarify or align parking of mobile food vendors with other commercial vehicles. So 3.7.3, commercial vehicles is proposed to be amended in the following way. Commercial vehicles limited to vans with the addition of mobile food vendors there in red, and trucks having a gross vehicle weight rating of up to 18,000 pounds may be parked on an overnight basis on any lot of less than 1 acre. This requirement does not prohibit vehicles from loading and unloading household goods in any residential area for a period of up to 24 hours. New paragraph. No residentially developed lot may be used as the basis of operation for any freight hauling truck. Excuse me. So, the proposed amendments are as follows. Chapter 2, add a broad definition. Chapter 3, clarify locations for overnight parking. Chapter 5, add mobile food vendors as a specifically allowed use in every district. And Chapter 6, add specific performance criteria. So the action of the Planning Board. At its 27 April meeting, the Planning Board voted 7-1 to forward this item to City Council with a positive recommendation with the following revisions to Chapter 6. They omitted requiring written permission from the property owner as well as language about allowing mobile food vendors only in the highway commercial district, except in association with a brick and mortar building elsewhere. So they eliminated that. They omitted a requirement of 100 feet of separation from a property line of an adjacent eatery unless permission is granted by the eatery owner. And they omitted a requirement for dedicated trash and restroom facilities. And the Planning Board found that the amendment was reasonable and in the public interest and consistent with the same comprehensive land use plan goals. Number 1, land use, and number 2, community character. So here's the specific remaining proposed text. All mobile food vendors must adhere to the following standards. They must provide their own power source. They must provide their own trash disposal. The location of mobile food vendors shall not restrict the pedestrian and vehicular circulation on site and shall ensure all zoning requirements are able to be maintained for existing uses. And fourthly, operations cannot impact or encroach on public sidewalks or streets. Second item, mobile food vendors must obtain all applicable permits from the county health department and other departments or agencies as applicable. And third item, any violation of these or other requirements shall require the vendor to cease operations and immediately remedy the violation. So again, we're asking City Council to receive the report, take public comment if any, discuss, offer modifications, and vote to approve or disapprove. Suggested motions: approve as presented, approve as modified, or disapprove. And for the findings, that the text amendment is a reasonable request and in the public interest, and the text amendment is consistent with the goals of the comprehensive land use plan. You'll excuse me, I'm going to have glad to take questions.
I'll let you finish your water.
Go ahead.
You mentioned in one of the previous slides that you've gone over what's in the amendment as recommended by the Planning Board, but the Planning Board had significant changes to the proposed text amendment that was originally presented to them. What were the concerns that the Planning Board expressed in deciding not to recommend those portions of the text amendment that were struck?
Well, that was the Planning Board discussion, and I apologize. This was not my agenda item, and Melissa Lockamy has since resigned. It is her agenda item. They struck, Planning Board struck, I hate to read it.
Well, I can, but I was just wondering what their rationale, what was the impetus for, why did they do that?
Sure. So just as a brief recap of some of the larger discussion of the full Planning and Zoning Board, I think what it really boiled down to as a culmination of the discussion was the logistics of rolling out and the cumbersome nature of going to get written permission from the adjacent property owners. And in addition, a lot of the businesses that are operating in the properties, they might not be the actual owners of those facilities, right? So you might have a business owner that's separate of the property owner, and within 100 feet, depending on the area, there could be multiple representatives to be coordinated with. And so one of the questions came up, who enforces that, who checks it, who makes sure that they have them all? And then based off the mobile nature, how realistic is that for that to be carried on at each site that they roll out to? So that was one of the concerns. And so my understanding is that they wanted to keep things as simplistic as possible and not create regulation where regulation might not be necessary, but to really focus on what really truly is needed for regulating mobile food vendors on private property. And then also just clarifying on certain things, right, about trash. They're going to still be recommending providing their own trash disposal, but wanting to make sure that if somebody walked away with, for instance, a to-go container from a mobile food vendor, and then they wanted to enjoy their lunch at the park, that there was not going to be any sort of restriction for somebody disposing of that to-go container in the public trash can facility, right? The business themselves would still be required to dispose of their own trash, but just based off the nature of how people operate and enjoy mobile food vendors in our city, I think they wanted to just provide a little bit of clarity there. And then with standalone utility service, sometimes there was examples of partnerships and kind of private agreements for utility service. And so just letting that being handled by other means as opposed to being part of the municipal regulations is my general recap of that discussion and conversation.
So is it fair to summarize, because there's a lot of stuff going on here, that we already deal with in the land development code mobile food vendors on public property in parks. So there was, the thought was there was a need to address mobile food vendors on private property. And so there were some original text amendments proposed. The planning board felt that perhaps they were too onerous on private property owners who have the right, generally to use their property as they see fit. It perhaps gave businesses a veto over competition, and perhaps would in some cases not allow mobile food vendors to be, anywhere on certain segments of the city. Is that fair?
That's a great recap. The one clarification that I would have is that the current regulations are existent in the municipal code, where the proposed are going to be within the land development
code. But so the planning board decided to keep things simple, to provide some regulation, but they took out some of the more onerous features of the proposed text amendments. Is that fair to say?
That is fair.
And I think there's also some things about like where you could park food trucks overnight.
Yes.
And those were taken out as well. Well, restrictions, but you're allowed. So like if you have a food truck and you want to take it home at night, you can park it in your driveway. Is that
right? Based off of planning board's feedback, the amendment to chapter 3 was actually added in to clarify that mobile food vendors would be allowed in residential areas for the owner operators that live within city limits.
Yes, I'm just curious. I know campers and boats, RVs and things like that have to be parked side rear, meaning the plane of the front of the house. Are there any restrictions on these vehicles where they park in the driveway? Are they restricted to side rear or just?
Not that I've found in our code.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Just one comment. This proposal from the Planning and Zoning Board, they did modify your language somewhat. Are you agreeable to these modifications?
That's really up to City Council, so our job is just to transmit Planning Board's recommendation to you tonight.
Okay. I know Phil is here. I don't know if he has any comments that he would like to make on this. I know that the board was somewhat involved in this. I'm guessing that he has no comments. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
That. At this time, I would entertain a motion to come out of public hearing.
Motion to come out of public hearing.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are now out of public hearing. I would entertain a motion at this time.
Motion to approve as presented.
Second.
All right, a motion to approve and a second has come forward. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I would also make a motion that this is consistent with the goals of the comprehensive land use plan and specifically consistent with goal number 1, land use, and goal number 4, community character.
Second.
All right, motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, that brings us to item number 10, a discussion about the future use of the Ford Center. I believe, Miles, you're taking us through this.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Turner. Council members have expressed the desire to discuss the future use of the facility with me over the past month, along with former Mayor Martin. And currently, the Milliken Pictorial History Museum leases the office space and some storage space in that facility. And included in your agenda package, you can see that the lease proposal shows that the term of the lease is for 1 year, and the lease effective date was last October 3rd, 2022. So it will be coming up for expiration on October 3rd, 2023. And inside your council packet, I did list a couple items for consideration. And these are that the renovation of the Ford Center is not included in the 5-year capital improvement plan. No funds are budgeted during this coming fiscal year 23-24 for any renovations. A building condition assessment has not been completed at this time. The future use and any renovations must consider building code requirements for any public use, and we're talking about accessibility for American with Disabilities Act, restroom requirements, life safety, any kind of doorway improvements. So all those things have to be taken into account when we're upfitting spaces. If renovations are considered, I just want to point out that staff will manage that design, bidding, and construction process, and that there's an existing tenant may have to be relocated if there's any kind of future renovations to the facility due to construction impacts. Plus, if any further tenants were considered, we'd have to consider a request to possibly move into a lease proposal with this new tenant and take into account the existing tenant that's in place. So just wanted to point those few things out, and really the purpose is to generate and facilitate discussion on the next use of the Ford Center. Turn it back over to you, Mayor.
Okay. We have the floor open for comments and discussion.
I understand that there have been some proposals for a remodel in connection with both the Pictorial Museum as well as perhaps a move of the Sports Hall of Fame from its current location to that location. I'm certainly interested in this. Obviously, I think one of my concerns was those proposals, those bids were provided to a private citizen, and obviously we would need to solicit those bids. I'd want to do this building condition assessment and look at the code requirements, but I'm certainly happy to proceed if you all are of the same persuasion, soliciting those bids to the city and seeing where we go. But I do think that we need to find out, just like we're going to talk about in the closed session coming up, like we've done with that property. We need to figure out what we're getting ourselves into, I think, before we go both feet in.
Yeah, I'll agree with Jim there again, just to kind of something that we've talked about and I've brought up in the past. This is an asset to the city, so regardless of what we do, particularly with this building condition assessment, I do think it's necessary, particularly if there's any type of structural or any type of major issues we need to get resolved today. So again, I think it's a great project. I'm glad, particularly what Jim said with the Sports Hall of Fame potentially moving there as well. I think that's a good project. But again, I think this building condition assessment is definitely needed for the building.
Any other comments? I mean, I will say that I agree with you. I mean, this came up several years ago, and we had the two properties, City Hall and the Ford Center, and we determined that these assets needed to be evaluated. These are city assets, and they need some attention. So I would be in agreement with that. So if I'm hearing this correctly, we have consensus at least to move forward with the condition assessment portion.
And how would that proceed, and what would we be looking at in terms of time frame?
Right. So the next steps in the process would be that we would probably reach out to possibly an architect or a firm that provides condition assessments to us, obtain a quote from that, and then bring it back to your attention. Given there's not anything budgeted, then it'd be a budget amendment at that time, and we'd bring that back to you at a future meeting.
Do we have any idea of cost in regards to it? I mean, I know that's kind of putting you on the spot, but just kind of in general.
I don't. I mean, it really depends on how far we get down into it. Usually a condition assessment will give us the facility envelope and then any kind of like structural needs that are inside there, plus the mechanical, electrical, plumbing aspects of the building. So it could do a deep dive into it, and really they want to like show what the existing condition is, and then gives you a better idea of what you could do in the future. You know, if you wanted to, you know, move a door or add a wall or something like that, or just to maintain the building as is. You know, what do we need to do at this time? Staff did go over last week, and we took a walk through it, and the gutters are clogged. The overall visual condition of the building doesn't look like it. It's something that I'm proud of as a city manager. So therefore, I think we need to do a lot to get it, you know, back up as far as what it looks like from the street. That's not taking into account anything that's inside the structure. I know that I talked to Zip, and he said that I think one of the HVAC units was on the brink, I believe. I think I see Zip shaking his head. So that's one thing that probably would need to be evaluated as well. So, but going back to the actual cost of it, I couldn't give you an idea. I don't know if that's a $10,000 or $20,000 piece. I couldn't tell you. I'll bring it back though.
Perfect. I appreciate it, Miles.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Well, if council is in agreement, one thing I would like to add is if we can fast track, I mean, as much as is reasonable to get this condition report in.
I think so.
And the evaluation on that.
Again, there's an importance about taking care of our facilities. So.
Yeah, regardless of what we end up.
Again, yes,
Yeah.
regardless of what we do.
Is that Jason? Are you fine?
Absolutely.
Jason?
I think it's a great asset to the city, both the museum and the Hall of Fame. So anything we can do to support that, I'm all in favor.
Okay, and this was just a discussion item, informational.
Yes, sir.
Nothing, no action required.
But we have now provided
consensus.
Yes,
consensus and
direction.
direction.
Direction, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Now we're going to move on to item number 11, which is appointment of elected officials to boards and committee. Now, this is normally something we would do on our organizational meeting in December. We do that each year. But with the resignation of Mayor Martin and Councilman Seelinger being appointed interim mayor, we have some seats that we need to fill at this time. So.
Well, I know Alex.
Well, I'll kind of start off here again, kind of in general too. Mayor Martin was a delegate to Central Ina Regional Council Board of Delegates. However, he had a lot of meeting conflicts, so I did step in to I was the alternate. However, I did kind of become the main delegate there, or delegate. I would be kind of like to offer that up to potentially anyone who is interested in that. Also, I see on this list with Councilman Seelinger, now Mayor Seelinger, evicting or leaving the Main Street Advisory Board. I would like to potentially put my name in the hat for being appointed to that board.
I would say, since Charlie as mayor was on the Central Ina Board of Delegates, you know, maybe since Mark is now the mayor, Mark could take that position, and he's not here, so I think that it's sort of like a rule that if you're not here, you get volunteered for something. I think that would be a fair thing to do since Mark is now mayor. I would support Alex moving into the vacancy on the Main Street Board created by Mark moving up to mayor, and I don't know whether Jason would be interested in Mark's seat on the Tourism Development Authority, but it seems like that might be an equitable distribution for everyone based on these vacancies.
And to the point, I will retain MPO for the duration of this year.
Sure, I'd be happy to assume that role. That's council's position.
Well, I mean, it's up to, I guess, the majority vote on this. I mean, I had an alternate proposal. I was basically going to say, let's reappoint Mark to his existing seats, move you to COG, and that would cause the less movement, because we are going to revisit this in 4 months, and we're going to shuffle the deck and then reshuffle. But I mean, currently, I'm serving on 4 boards, primary on 3, alternate on 1. I know Councilman Zooks, you're primary on, you're on 4 as well, primary 3, alternate 1. Stowe, primary on 1, alternate on 1, and Jim, you have 2 boards, and you are primary on both of them. But I mean, it's up to the will of the board how we proceed on this.
I mean, I think if there's an open position and Alex is interested in it, I'm happy to support him, because I know Alex requested at our last organizational meeting Main Street, and neither Mark nor I would give it up. And now that Mark has, I'm not sure whether the mayor could be in those positions or not. Maybe there's nothing against it, but I think if Alex is interested in assuming that role, then I'd support that. And I mean, I guess it's up to Jason if you want Tourism Development Board, or I don't know whether it would be acceptable for Mark to take that. But I certainly don't want you to think we're excluding you from the joy of committee membership.
Well, I mean, I would agree. Mark's not here, and Mark's the perfect candidate for COG.
Yes.
I think we've all served on that. So if we're going to go in a rotation, it would make sense.
Yeah.
Mayor has traditionally served on COG.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Everything's still okay with council members being a part of non-for-profit for the Main Street program?
You can be, everything's okay as far as being a liaison, but not vote.
Okay, so I would be appointed as a non-voting member to the Main Street Board. Thank you.
That goes for any of the boards?
Just non-profits. Okay.
There are special rules for the Tourism Development Authority because that is set by state statute. So it's a little bit different from a lot of our other boards.
Okay, so Jamie, did you capture all of that, the transitioning that's going to take place on the boards? Okay. All right, is this something that will require a vote, or is this just?
I don't think it would hurt.
Okay. All right, in that case, I would entertain a motion for the new appointments to these city boards and committees.
All right, I'll move to appoint interim Mayor Seelinger to replace Mayor Martin on COG. I would move to appoint Councilman Rumfelt to take Councilman Seelinger's place on the Tourism Development Authority, and I would move to appoint Councilman Zooks to take Councilman Seelinger's vacant spot on the Main Street Board for the remainder of their terms, I guess.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to the conclusion of our agenda items. We are now moving into reports. We have the minutes of the Environmental Sustainability Board. I believe those are the only minutes available. A chance to read those minutes. Other than that, we will move into other business, and I will begin to my right.
Oh, me first?
Sure.
Oh, wow. That's a new one. First of all, again, thanks to staff and everyone who came out and the volunteers for the Recreation Department. Jamie, thank you for helping organize that party. It was grand opening. It was definitely one for the books. I think it's a beautiful facility. We've done a great job as a community. I'm looking forward to seeing that place packed. Zip, again, thank you and your team as well for everything y'all have done. Jared, a big thank you to you. Other than that, I don't have too much. Welcome, Jason, to the council. Mark is not here, but again, congratulations to be appointed to mayor until he goes off and leaves us to run for county commissioner. Again, I don't have too much. I do want to kind of elaborate and kind of also reiterate my passion for the Belmont Trolley organization and what they're doing for the city of Belmont. Again, this has been a passion of mine since I was younger. So again, I do hope that we continue to help the trolley organization to try to get this across the finish line. Thank you.
I too would like to welcome Jason to our midst and look forward to serving with you as we go forward. I would also obviously like to thank all staff involved in the Recreation Center opening, as well as the Red, White, and Belmont event, which was very well attended, and everyone seemed to enjoy the music and the fireworks, so that was a really great event. While me and my lovely wife were walking back to our car after the fireworks, I did notice there was a pothole on Bryant Street near McLeod, and I know our public works director, I think, is out, but I said I'd mention that. I saw him at the festival and mentioned that. Board interviews, I think we have some left, don't we?
We do. We didn't have a quorum tonight, so I couldn't.
Yes.
I couldn't plan them before.
Yes.
But now you guys aren't going to be here for the workshop, so are you guys okay with doing it before the August city council meeting? Are you good with that? So I'll start reaching out to people.
Wait, when?
August.
Well, the next meeting we have is the August.
So a special meeting.
7th?
Yes, but just so you guys know, I will not be here for that. I will need to put that file. Are you okay with that?
I think that'd be fine. Yes, sir.
All right.
So
we seem to keep falling into this problem, though, where by the time we finish the interviews, we're going to have forgotten what everyone said in the first round of interviews.
I had them all planned to do today, but there wouldn't have been enough of you to make a vote.
Yeah. Just kind of 1 second question to that. Did you get my note in regards to the additional applicant? Okay, perfect.
And I will contact him as soon as I have a date.
Thank you.
Other than that, I would just, I know the North Belmont Booster Pump Station has been sort of planned for a while. I was wondering if we could get an update on when that's going to be online. Because I know it was somewhat, it was originally going to happen in connection with Dixon Village, and then there was some delay in terms of materials and supplies, as is happening so frequently. But I'd like to sort of get an update as to when we might expect that to go online. And I don't know whether Miles or anyone else can tell us how day one of the rec center normal business hours went.
I think that's a Zip Stowe question right there for sure. Hey, Zip, you want to walk up here and give the update? Thank you.
Yes, the first day we were open from 8:30 to 6 o'clock. We probably had about 100 people to sign up. Most of them were online. So we had about 55 people actually come into the place. So we're looking to even have more tomorrow as we move forward.
And everything was logistically smooth?
We had some software issues, but after we got that fixed and everything worked out pretty good. So during that process, we had to let everybody manually sign in. After we got that fixed, it was running very smoothly.
How are we marketing to try to get this out to make sure people know that they have to sign up for this? Is it like newsletters, Facebook?
Newsletters, Facebook, so all social media.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we put it in the water bill, like the little?
Like the water quality report that would come
Yeah,
out?
like the water quality
We've done some flyers. In there.
Yeah.
We haven't done that yet. We'll be putting that the next time it goes
We could do that.
Anything else for Zip?
Thanks, Zip.
All right, thanks, Zip.
And just one more thing. I want to thank the police for the enforcement at Keener and R.L. Stowe. I know we had a resident, I think, mention some concerns about that intersection, and we see it in the reports, but when I go that way, I definitely see a police car more often than not, and it keeps me on my toes. So we appreciate that enforcement and presence.
All right, I'm going to break protocol just a little bit and move to Jason. Do you have anything for other business? Any comments?
I would just add that we did get to be a part of the grand opening on Saturday, and it's just a fantastic facility for the community. For a few of us in the room, maybe they got to play Little League basketball when we grew up here. We actually had a partnership with the Abbey, and they used to actually coach us. The players would coach us, but that was kind of the only location we had to play. If you remember that. And so it's great to have such a wonderful facility, not only for the youth and all the courts that are included there, but a lot of the meeting space. And I understand that the gadabouts are going to be able to move it, in there and have a lot of their meetings there. So, and making it so affordable for the community, I think, is a great thing. I'm really happy to see that.
All right, now I'm going to swing back to myself and close out other business. I would like to thank and recognize our former mayor, Charlie Martin. Charlie Martin had years of service to this community as a city councilman and a mayor, not to mention the coaching that he did. Charlie has never met a stranger. He has coached everybody in Belmont. And
literally.
Yeah. I mean, literally. That is a fact. Charlie is going to be missed. Charlie was the quintessential mayor, meter and greeter. He was a great face of Belmont, and I don't think Charlie could ever be replaced, but he can be succeeded by someone. The city has to move on. I would also like to again thank our officers, Huffstetler and Harris, for their service, their years of dedicated service to Belmont. I've known these officers for some time. I'm always cognizant that there is a very thin blue line between us and what else is out there, and you guys do a great job standing between us and keeping this community safe. Jason, I'd like to welcome you. I appreciate your willingness to serve on this board and help the city council with its business. Great fireworks, red, white, and Belmont. That was a great event. The music was great. Heard nothing but great comments about the band, the show, just everything about it. So, Phil, that was really a special event. The rec center, we did attend the grand opening. It was brutally hot. I want to thank everybody for standing out there in that heat and that sun. We were somewhat in the shade. The crowd that gathered at the doors, there was a little bit of a delay there, but you guys weathered it very well. I knew if we didn't get through our comments rather quickly, you guys might go ahead and just push on through us to get inside into the air conditioning. But Jason is right in his comments. We were intentional about keeping this affordable to the citizens and families here in Belmont, and we were able to achieve that. So I was very pleased with that. It's a great facility, and I hope everyone here will take a minute to go visit that. This is your rec center. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh, we have a closed session, though.
Okay, that's correct. We do have a closed session. All right, and with that, we will have to.
Well, I'll move to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A5 regarding the proposed acquisition of real property.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to go into closed session. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, we are now in closed session.